Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. In a city where the frenetic pace seemed to swallow up every moment of life, Marcus Johnson walked leisurely along the sidewalk, grocery bag in hand. Tall and imposing, but with a gentle smile, he was known in his neighborhood for his kindness and willingness to help others. That morning, he had no idea that a simple gesture would change his life forever. A few meters away, a woman in her 30s, visibly pregnant, struggled to maintain her balance on the slippery sidewalk. Her hesitant steps betrayed fatigue and fear. Without thinking, Marcus approached and extended his hand. "Are you all right?" he asked softly. The woman looked at him, surprised and relieved at the same time. She hadn't asked anyone for help, but in that moment, Marcus was there, like a guardian angel in the chaos of the city. With his help, she was able to cross the street safely, her face lit up with a grateful smile. What Marcus didn't know was that this woman, Sophia Williams, was much more than just a passerby. She was the only daughter of a wealthy, influential entrepreneur in the city, a man respected and feared in the business world. And behind that grateful smile lay a secret that would bind Marcus to Sophia in ways neither of them could have imagined. A simple act of kindness, a moment of humanity. And so fate began to write their shared story. That day, Marcus Johnson had no idea he had just crossed the threshold of an adventure that would change his life, and Sophia's, forever. Marcus Johnson was heading home after a morning shift at the neighborhood community center. His life was simple but filled with routines he enjoyed, helping youth, chatting with neighbors, and sometimes, just walking to reflect. That day, he had planned to stop by the market to buy some fresh vegetables. As he crossed the main street, a muffled scream caught his attention. A pregnant woman, clearly about to fall, was struggling to keep her balance on the pavement, which was slippery in the light rain. Without hesitation, Marcus rushed over and placed a firm hand on her arm. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. The woman looked at him, surprised. "Yes, thank you. I didn't know how to cross this street without falling," she said, breathing heavily. Marcus smiled. "No problem. Hold on to my arm. I'll walk with you." They crossed the street together. With every step, Marcus felt the woman's gratitude, but also a kind of nervousness in her eyes. Once on the other side, she stopped and looked at him closely. "My name is Sophia Williams," she said, holding out her hand. "Marcus Johnson," he replied, shaking his hand. "Nice to meet you." Sophia seemed to hesitate for a moment, as if she wanted to say something but didn't dare. Marcus, however, was unaware that this gesture, however simple, would set off a chain of events that would turn their lives upside down. As they parted, Sophia whispered, "Thank you, really. You saved me." Marcus smiled, thinking he had simply done the right thing. But he didn't know that Sophia's gratitude was just the beginning of a connection that would go far beyond a chance encounter. The next morning, Marcus woke up with the memory of his meeting with Sophia still vivid in his mind. He thought back to her anxious face and grateful smile. To him, it was simply a gesture of humanity, a simple act of kindness. But to Sophia, this small gesture meant so much more. Sophia Williams, for her part, couldn't get Marcus out of her mind. Since his accident the day before, she felt strangely safe and intrigued by this strange man. She wasn't used to asking strangers for help, especially not men from poor neighborhoods. But there was something in his eyes and the way he acted that inspired confidence. However, Sophia was hiding a dark secret. She was the only child of Richard Williams, an influential billionaire entrepreneur in the city. Her life was monitored and planned, and she often had to navigate family obligations and her personal desires. And this simple moment of vulnerability with Marcus threatened to upset the strict orders she had imposed on herself. Meanwhile, Marcus continued his day as usual. He had no idea that his small gesture had indirectly attracted the attention of Sophia's father. Richard Williams had eyes and ears everywhere. In his worldview, any relationship with someone from a working-class neighborhood had to be meticulously controlled. And the idea that a stranger, black and humble, had helped his daughter, was beginning to worry him. Fate seemed to be having fun bringing together these two completely different worlds, Marcus's, made of simplicity and solidarity, and Sophia's, made of wealth, power, and family secrets. Their paths had just crossed, and neither suspected how much this encounter would change their lives. But the real test was coming soon. Chance, or perhaps destiny, was already preparing the next encounter, more intense and decisive, which would force Marcus and Sophia to make choices that could change everything. A few days after their first meeting, Marcus couldn't help but think about Sophia again. By chance, they ran into each other again, this time at a downtown cafe where Marcus often came to relax after his day at the community center. Sophia was there, sitting at a table by the window, holding a hot coffee in her hands. When she saw Marcus, her face lit up with a shy smile. Marcus, surprised but delighted, approached. "Hello, Sophia. I didn't expect to see you here again," he said, trying to sound relaxed. "Hello, Marcus. I needed to get out for a bit," she answered hesitantly, her eyes betraying a worry she didn't want to show. They sat down and began to chat, exchanging simple stories about their daily lives. Marcus told her about his work at the community center, his family, and the young people he helped. Sophia, on the other hand, spoke very little about her personal life, keeping her secrets well hidden. But the tranquility of that moment was suddenly interrupted. Two well-dressed men entered the cafe and headed straight for Sophia. Marcus watched the scene, intrigued but cautious. "Sophia, we need to talk immediately," one of the men said firmly. Sophia paled slightly and stood up, giving Marcus an apologetic look. "Excuse me," she whispered before following the men. Marcus sat there, his heart sinking. He sensed that something serious was brewing. These men weren't there by chance. And he understood then that the help he had given Sophia a few days earlier had just drawn him, too, into a world much more complex than he had imagined. A few hours later, Marcus learned from a mutual friend that Sophia was the daughter of Richard Williams, one of the most powerful men in the city. This simple fact changed everything. The man he had helped was connected to an influential family, and his once peaceful life was about to become much more complicated. Marcus realized that his act of kindness, though innocent, had just plunged him into a world where money, power, and family secrets could threaten his peace of mind. And yet, despite the risks, he felt a new determination, to protect Sophia and stay by her side, no matter the cost. The next day, Sophia returned home to her father's lavish apartment in the city's most exclusive neighborhood. The walls were decorated with expensive paintings, the furniture was made of rare woods, and every object seemed to reflect Richard Williams's power and wealth. But behind this luxurious facade lurked a rigid and oppressive atmosphere. Richard Williams, an imposing man with piercing eyes, was waiting for her in his office. As soon as Sophia entered, her father stared at her intensely. "Sophia, I heard you were walking with that man." His voice was cold, authoritative. Sophia felt a shiver. "Dad. Marcus is just someone who helped me. Nothing more." She tried to explain. Richard stood up, his eyes flashing. "Just someone who helped you? Don't you know our family rules? Don't you know who we are?" This man, he hesitated for a moment, as if trying to find the right words, "is not of our world. You must not see him again, Sophia. Understand?" Sophia, though troubled, held his gaze. "Dad. I can't judge someone by their social standing or money. Marcus is a good person." Richard shook his head in frustration. "Sophia, I will not tolerate you jeopardizing your reputation or our family for a stranger." But Sophia, for the first time, felt a rebellion ignite within her. She had always followed the rules imposed by her father, but Marcus's help and kindness had touched her deeply. She knew that this simple act of kindness was worth more than all the rules and prohibitions in the world. Meanwhile, Marcus, still unaware of the gravity of the situation, continued his life as usual. But he sensed that something had changed. He had tried to contact Sophia, but she hadn't responded to his messages. His intuition told him that his actions had created an invisible but powerful tension in his life and in Sophia's. That evening, Marcus stood outside his apartment, gazing at the illuminated city, pondering what would come next. He understood that the next encounter with Sophia would not be easy. The forces of power and money would oppose him, and yet, he felt ready to face any obstacle to protect the one who, unknowingly, had already taken an immense place in his heart. Fate continued to play their part, but now it was clear that nothing would ever be simple again. Days after her father's stern warning, Sophia couldn't stop thinking about Marcus. Every smile, every kind gesture he'd shown her, kept coming back to her. She knew that seeing Marcus again would put her in danger in her father's eyes, but she couldn't ignore this budding bond. Marcus, for his part, continued to think about Sophia. He didn't yet know who she really was, but a deep curiosity and a desire to protect her were growing within him. When he spotted Sophia in a park, sitting on a bench, looking thoughtfully at her phone, he knew he had to approach her. "Sophia," he said with a smile, trying to sound casual. She looked up, hesitant. "Marcus," she whispered, aware that every moment they spent together was now risky. "Are you okay?" Marcus asked, sitting down next to her. Sophia sighed. "Dad doesn't want me to see you." "But I..." She trailed off, unable to finish her sentence. Marcus gently took her hand. "Sophia, I understand. But what we shared, it was just an act of kindness. It shouldn't be a problem." She looked at him, touched. "It's not fair to me. All my father wants is to control every aspect of my life." Marcus felt a new determination rise within him. "Then we'll find a way. I won't leave you alone to face this." From that moment on, their encounters became clandestine. Each meeting was a mixture of fear and excitement, each smile exchanged strengthening their bond. But the deeper their relationship grew, the greater the risks. Sophia's father, Richard Williams, was an influential and determined man. He would not tolerate his daughter straying from his control, especially for someone he considered a mere stranger from a world he despised. And yet, Marcus and Sophia were willing to defy the ban, convinced that their connection extended far beyond social differences and threats. Their story, born from a simple act of kindness, began to unfold with courage and passion, defying opposition and expectations. But fate, always unpredictable, was already preparing new obstacles, and new revelations that would test their determination and their mutual trust. Richard Williams had no intention of standing idly by. The mere thought of his daughter becoming attached to Marcus, a man he deemed inferior in every way, infuriated him. He summoned his advisors and influential friends to formulate a plan. Sophia had to understand, once and for all, that her future could not depend on a stranger. Meanwhile, Marcus continued to see Sophia in secret. Each encounter was precious, but also dangerous. He sensed that Sophia's world was far more complicated than he had imagined. The messages she sent and received from her father were strict, threatening, and full of control. One evening, when they met in a small, discreet cafe, Sophia spoke frankly. "Marcus, my father will do everything to separate us. I can feel it." Marcus squeezed her hand gently. "No matter what he does, Sophia. We'll always find a way. This connection between us, it's real." But their optimism was short-lived. The next day, Sophia received a message from her father, clear and cold. "If you continue to associate with Marcus Johnson, you will be excluded from any family inheritance and deprived of all our protections. Stop these meetings immediately." Sophia felt a thrill of fear, but also of defiance. She knew her father would never relinquish his control easily, and that Marcus might face immense social and financial pressure. Marcus, for his part, understood that the innocence of their relationship was now threatened. But instead of backing down, he felt his resolve strengthen. "Sophia, we cannot let your father decide our lives for us. We must remain united, no matter what." Their relationship, born from a simple act of kindness, now became an act of courage and defiance. Each clandestine encounter was a victory against control and wealth, but also a step toward a greater conflict. Outside, the city continued its frenetic life, oblivious to the tensions brewing in the shadows. But Marcus and Sophia knew the real fight had only just begun. Power, money, and authority would be formidable opponents, and nothing would ever be simple again. The days that followed were tense. Marcus and Sophia continued to see each other in secret, but each encounter was now fraught with caution and fear. Richard Williams, determined to regain control, had begun sending indirect warnings. Men were watching Marcus, anonymous messages were appearing in his mailbox, and some people in the neighborhood seemed suddenly to be turning away from him. One afternoon, as Marcus was leaving the community center, he felt a presence behind him. Two men in suits, obviously well-trained, escorted him to an alley. "Marcus Johnson?" one of them asked authoritatively. "Yes, who are you?" Marcus replied, his muscles tense but his gaze calm. "My advice is simple: stop seeing Sophia Williams. Your persistence could have serious consequences for you and your family." Marcus understood immediately. The threat wasn't empty. Richard Williams wasn't joking. But rather than backing down, he felt his determination grow. That evening, when he joined Sophia at their usual meeting place, he told her about the incident. Sophia, pale but resolute, squeezed his hand. "Marcus, I knew this was going to happen. But I'm not scared, not with you." Their bond grew stronger. Every threat, every obstacle, became a testament to the strength of their relationship. They realized they could no longer simply hide, they had to act intelligently to protect their future together. Meanwhile, Richard Williams intensified his pressure. He hired lawyers and advisors to control every aspect of his daughter's life, even threatening to cut off her contact with the outside world. Sophia found herself caught in a cruel dilemma: follow her father's orders or follow her heart. But Marcus and Sophia knew that a simple refusal would not be enough. For their love to survive, they had to fight intelligently, united in the face of power, wealth, and family secrets. And in the shadows, an idea was brewing in Marcus's mind: if Richard Williams wanted a confrontation, he would be ready to respond, not with fear, but with courage and strategy. Their story, which began with a simple act of kindness, had now become a struggle against authority, privilege, and injustice. And each of them knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but that their bond, fragile yet strong, could overcome it all. Marcus and Sophia knew they could no longer rely on furtive encounters and silent threats. Each day brought new pressures and dangers. They decided it was time to act, not with reckless defiance, but with strategy. In a small, discreet cafe, away from prying eyes, they met to formulate their plan. Sophia spoke first, her voice filled with determination. "Marcus, I can't live under my father's control anymore. If we want to stay together, we have to find a way to neutralize him, at least so I can make my own decisions." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "We can't attack his power directly, but we can show him who I really am. He judges my worth by my social standing and my money, but he has no idea about my integrity, my actions, or what I do for my community." Sophia smiled slightly. "Yes, you've always been generous, even when no one was looking. Maybe he'll finally see the truth if I show him what you're really like." They then established a plan in several stages. 1. Showing Marcus's true worth, Sophia would organize a controlled meeting where his father could see the positive impact Marcus had on the community and on young people from the neighborhood. 2. Strengthen their public connection, so that Richard understands that their connection was not a simple whim. They would start participating in events, social and charitable work together, but always with caution. 3. Preparing Sophia for independence, she would begin to make financial and personal decisions independently, proving to her father that she could choose her own path without being influenced. This strategy was risky, but for Marcus and Sophia, there was no other way. Their love had begun as a simple act of kindness, but it was now becoming a force capable of challenging authority and control. As Marcus and Sophia formulated their plan, Richard Williams discreetly observed their actions. Little did he know that his authority was beginning to be challenged, and that Marcus's courage and ingenuity would force him to re-examine his prejudices and certainties. Their struggle wasn't just against family threats and rules, but also against a system of power and control that had shaped Sophia's life since birth. And despite the obstacles, Marcus and Sophia were willing to do anything to preserve what had just been born between them. The dreaded day arrived. Sophia, with Marcus's support, invited her father to a local charity event, a renovation project at a community center where Marcus had worked for years. She knew this was their best chance to show Marcus's true worth and prove that he deserved not only her respect, but also her trust. Richard Williams arrived, suspicious and cold, accompanied by his assistants. He observed Marcus from afar, his eyes scrutinizing every gesture, every smile, every interaction. Marcus, aware of the pressure, remained calm. He focused on his mission, to demonstrate his sincerity, his commitment, and his integrity. During the event, Marcus guided Richard through the community center, introducing him to the young people he had helped, the educational programs he had initiated, and the families whose lives he had changed. Every testimony, every child's smile, every word of gratitude resonated as living proof of the man he truly was. Richard remained silent, but Marcus felt his eyes softening little by little. What he saw did not match the preconceived image he had of Marcus. This man was not a mere stranger or an unworthy suitor for his daughter. He was a man of values, courageous and loyal. At the end of the visit, Sophia spoke. "Dad. Marcus isn't just a friend. He's someone who helped me when I needed it, who showed me what kindness and strength are. I want to make my own choices, and I choose Marcus." A heavy silence followed. Richard, struck by his daughter's sincerity and Marcus's real impact on the community, remained motionless, unable to respond immediately. For the first time, he felt a mixture of admiration and doubt. After a long moment, he spoke, his voice softer than usual. "Sophia. I see now that I may have been too harsh. Marcus, you have shown that you are a trustworthy man, and that you respect my daughter and what we stand for." Marcus, surprised but relieved, nodded respectfully. Sophia, her eyes shining, felt a weight lift from her shoulders. For the first time, she could breathe freely, knowing that her love for Marcus was now accepted, at least partially, by her father. This decisive confrontation did not solve all the problems, but it opened a new door, that of trust, mutual respect, and a future where Marcus and Sophia could build their story, despite social differences and past obstacles. Their relationship, born from a simple act of kindness, had just taken a crucial step forward. But fate, always unpredictable, still had trials in store that would test their courage and their love. The weeks following the confrontation were a mixture of relief and hard work. Richard Williams, though still protective and demanding, began to accept Marcus into his daughter's life. Marcus, for his part, was patient and respectful, aware that love is built not only on passion, but also on trust and understanding. Sophia and Marcus were finally able to experience some time without the constant fear of being discovered or separated. They participated in community projects and charity events together, and continued to support local youth. Each action strengthened their bond and mutual respect. One evening, as they were walking in the park where they had first met, Sophia took Marcus's hand and smiled at him. "You know, it all started with a simple gesture," she whispered. Marcus smiled back. "Yes, a kind gesture. But look where it's gotten us." They stopped near the bench where it all began. Sophia, with a mixture of nervousness and happiness, whispered, "I want to continue this path with you, Marcus, no matter the obstacles." Marcus, touched, shook his hand and replied, "Me too, Sophia. We've overcome so many challenges already, and I know we can face anything together." In the following weeks, Richard Williams began to observe the couple with growing pride. He saw how much Marcus respected his daughter and how sincere their relationship was. He understood that true love was not measured by wealth, status, or power, but by courage, kindness, and loyalty. Finally, Marcus and Sophia were able to live their love fully, balanced between their different worlds but united by the same humanity. Marcus's simple gesture, that day when he reached out to a pregnant woman in distress, had changed their lives forever. And in this bustling city, beneath the lights of the buildings and the singing of the neighborhood children, Marcus and Sophia began a new chapter, a future chosen together, based on love, respect, and the strength of their convictions. Fate, sometimes mysterious and unpredictable, had given birth to a beautiful story of humanity and courage, reminding us that even the simplest gestures can transform lives.